upcoming Global Disability Summit 2025, I am pleased to welcome my colleague Greta Gamberini, Manager of the Global Disability Summit Secretariat. Greta leads the Global Disability Summit Secretariat's activities and partnership with over 5 years of experience in disability inclusive development. She previously worked with the European Disability Forum and ADD International and holds a master's in law. Greta, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Rosario, and thanks to all of you for connecting today. As Rosario mentioned, this is the first of a series of webinars that the International Disability Alliance, together with the Global Disability Summit Secretariat, will be holding in the run-up to the Global Disability Summit. In the next 10 minutes or so, I will try and provide you with a framework that will give you information about what the Global Disability Summit is, why it is important, and then we will also be focusing on the aspect of OPD participation and OPD ownership of the Global Disability Summit process. So without any further delays, the Global Disability Summit is a mechanism that aims to advance the rights and the inclusion of persons with disabilities around the world. And the goal for the Global Disability Summit for 2025 is to use the momentum created by this global convening in order to ensure that international development cooperation focuses on the rights of persons with disabilities, to the extent that is needed given the relevance of the population group. Wanting to look a bit back at the previous Global Disability Summit cycles, the Global Disability Summit was first held in 2018 in London, and it served as an inspiration for many stakeholders to critically think about disability inclusion and to reinforce their commitment to disability inclusive development. The next Global Disability Summit was held in 2022, and it was held virtually, co-hosted by the government of Norway and the government of Ghana. And while it could be said that the virtual nature due to COVID restriction made the summit in 2022 less impactful than the one in 2018, it still managed to stress the importance of disability rights, and also to apply a disability inclusive lens to two areas that had previously not received enough attention. And these two areas that prominently came out of the summit in 2022 were health and climate change. So moving on to 2025, the next Global Disability Summit will be held in Berlin on April 2nd and 3rd, and will be co-hosted by the International Disability Alliance as the permanent co-host, the government of Germany, and the government of Jordan. As I mentioned, the goal is to build on the previous cycles, and we believe that the next summit will be specifically important at this moment in time and in relation to past global disability summits because of three key elements. The first one is that of national ownership. The objective is to ensure that governments lead on disability inclusion through strengthened trust and ownership of the disability movement, and also through the creation of stronger partnerships between stakeholders. The concept of national ownership can be seen through the methodology in which the commitments mechanism has been reshaped, and we will hear more about this later today. And also through the fact that we are really trying to have many events connected to the main summit, such as regional events, and I will speak in a moment about these, and such as these consultative webinar series. The second aspect is that of concrete and actionable commitments. The next Global Disability Summit is calling for pledges to achieve real progress by understanding and addressing gaps, both from previous summits, but also more broadly looking at what is needed today when it comes to international cooperation and inclusive development. José Viera will speak about what the commitments are later today. And we will also hear from two representatives of organizations of persons with disabilities on their experience with the commitments and also recommendations when it comes to the engagement of persons with disabilities in the commitments process. The third and final aspect is that of the declaration. The GDS declaration will be a political document with the concrete objective of ensuring the implementation of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, with specific focus on the area of international development cooperation. Some of the key elements of the declaration include stressing that disability inclusion has to be mainstreamed in all activities and on all levels of development cooperation, ensuring that development cooperation is viewed from a global south perspective, and also highlighting the need from concrete efforts from the global north. Moving a bit into what the concrete aspects of the Global Disability Summit are, and also the focus of these cycles. In the past 2 years, the International Disability Alliance has run a series of consultations across the world and involving many different groups of persons with disabilities. The consultations aimed at understanding what the priorities of organizations of persons with disabilities are, and what they would be interested in seeing the Global Disability Summit focus on. The results of these consultations were compiled and presented in a report by IDA, and this report was given to the co-hosts to inform their decision on how to shape the program and the objectives of the Global Disability Summit. So based on this report, we've identified 4 pillars under which to group different thematic priorities, and 4 guiding principles that should be considered to cut across all of the different teams. The 4 guiding principles are that of legal harmonization, promoting gender equality, collecting disaggregated data, and prioritizing underrepresented groups. So just once more, the 4 guiding principles are legal harmonization, promoting gender equality, collecting disaggregated data, and prioritizing underrepresented groups. The 4 pillars under which we will aim to group different teams are those of non-discrimination, equality, and participation, accessibility, situations of crisis and conflict, and social and economic rights. So at this stage, and based on the structure which I have just outlined, the co-hosts are trying to finalize a list of priority topics that each different sessions during the Global Disability Summit will focus on, and also to really frame the submission of commitments. For what concerns the different events that are being planned before and after the Global Disability Summit, all of these events are aiming to address 3 specific objectives. The first objective is to have conversations that are specific to a region or that specifically address a theme. The Global Disability Summit is, as the word suggests, a global convening. And so it would be unrealistic to say that we will be able to cover all of the aspects that are important to the disability community over the course of 2 days. And hence we are really trying to promote different regional events and also thematic pre-summits so that everything can be covered in as much detail as possible. At this stage, we have 6 regional summits, one of which has already happened. Last week in Nairobi, we had the first of the series, and we had a regional summit for the African region, co-organized by the International Disability Alliance and the African Disability Forum with the support of the German government. And we will also have a regional summit for the Pacific region, one for Latin America, one for North America and the Caribbean, one for the Arab region, and one for the European and Central Asia region. We are also in the last steps of confirming a Pan-Asian Regional Summit, which would hopefully cover and engage the regions which would not be engaged under Southeast Asia and the Pacific or Central Asia. The second objective of these events is, of course, that of identifying and advocating for the submission of commitments that are needed specifically from the perspective of certain regional or thematic contexts. And then the final aspect is that of promoting the participation of organizations of persons with disabilities. And on the specific point of participation, I would really like to stress that we are really trying to promote the idea that participation is not just about attending the summit in Berlin, but really being involved in every phase of the Global Disability Summit cycle. And this goes through supporting with the planning of events, participating in consultations and in informative webinars like this one. This means delivering certain panels, actively advocating for the submission of commitments, and then finally being engaged in monitoring and evaluation efforts. Rosario, I know I'm running out of time, so let me just conclude by mentioning that I'm very aware that I've provided you with quite a lot of information. We will make sure to follow up with you after the webinar and provide you with several informative materials. I will also include the email of the Secretariat in the chat box, and we will also add the link for our newsletter. Our newsletter goes out monthly and contains a lot of the information which I just outlined. Thanks so much for listening to me, and thanks, Rosario.
Thank you so much, Greta. Definitely very important information. I would like to recall the guiding principles that you mentioned about collecting disaggregated data, legal harmonization, promoting gender equality, prioritization of underrepresented groups, which is really important as principles, and also the pillars that you mentioned in which all the topics will be selected. Definitely very important information, especially for some of people who maybe are new in this mechanism, even though this will be our third Global Disability Summit, but there are people who maybe don't know anything about the previous ones. That's why it's very important to have this recap of information. Okay, Greta, thank you. I don't know if we have Sally now, or we are still waiting for Sally. Greta, could you confirm if we have Sally or not yet?
I was trying to see it myself, Rosario. I think unluckily Sally is not with us at the moment. I'm not sure if Alexandra can see otherwise. So if that's the case, I would maybe suggest going through maybe a short Q&A, and then we can move to the other presenters.
Yes, no, we can do like a brief round of questions. Please, you can write your question in the chat box, or if it's not possible for you, you can also raise your hand, and Alexandra will be telling me if there are some raised hands. Please feel free to ask any question to Greta, because there are a lot of information about different components of the Global Disability Summit. And you also are lucky because we have different languages here. Sometimes it's not possible maybe to raise questions because there are only 1 or 2 languages, but now we have German, we have French, Arabic, we have Portuguese and Spanish. That's why please feel free to write something in the chat or raise your hand in case you want to open your mic.
Rosario.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Greta?
No, I just see quite a few questions in the Q&A box,
Okay.
so I can go ahead and start answering those. So I apologize, I was so eager to speak about the GDS that I did not introduce myself, and that was one of the questions. My name is Greta, and I manage the Global Disability Summit Secretariat. I, as Rosario mentioned, currently work for the International Disability Alliance. I also am not a fan of using slides, so I just spoke throughout my presentation. However, if you would like to have informative material about the GDS or receive already pre-made presentations about the GDS, please do let us know. We have these materials ready and we're happy to provide them. There's a question about signing up for the webinar and how to get partner OPDs on panels. The webinars are publicized in many different avenues. We are working, and it is very much a learning process for us. In terms of always having the invitations in different languages and accessible formats. The webinars are publicized in our newsletter, so that's an excellent way to be updated about these webinars. They're also circulated through different mailing lists. And they're also shared on our social media. In terms of having an active role in these webinars, we are, of course, always and usually going through the IDA network and asking our IDA members for suggestions. We also receive several self-nominations through our email channels with specific expressions of interest in being engaged in the process or talking about specific topics. So if you are interested in having an active role, please do email us and let us know. Sorry, trying to go through the question. Is there a particular mechanism or entry point for children with disabilities in the various events and in the summit itself? The answer is no. We at the moment do not have a separate mechanism or entry point for children with disabilities. We are, of course, very aware of the importance of including the perspective of children with disabilities and addressing the rights and needs of children with disabilities across all of the events that we are holding around the GDS, and also in calling for commitments submission. UNICEF has been a very active partner of the Global Disability Summit throughout the years. So of course we have this particular issue very much in mind. Another question regards the Civil Society Forum, and we will talk about this later today, so I will not address this question now. We have a question on registration for panels and when will this open, and whether selected speakers will receive any funding to travel to the summit. The answer to that question is at the moment the co-hosts are still finalizing the different panels and program for the GDS, and they have not decided yet whether an actual application process will happen for speaking at the summit on different panels. Should that be the case, I would foresee late autumn to be when we will potentially call for applications for speakers in different panels. And speakers would indeed be funded to attend the summit and contribute as speakers of the summit. I should have also mentioned that the International Disability Alliance will be funding roughly 200 representatives of organizations of persons with disabilities to attend the GDS. We will open a nomination process and also publish a clear and transparent selection criteria by the end of this month. And of course, we will call for representatives of OPDs to self-nominate themselves or nominate third representatives to be funded to attend the summit. In order to attend the summit, in case of self-funding, registration should also open in the coming weeks. The registration link will be posted on the GDS website, and we will also make sure to share it, of course, through our newsletter and different mailing lists that I've mentioned before. Rosario, please let me know how I'm doing on time, as we have many questions. So I keep going through the list. If at any point you would like for me to stop, let me know. And I will make sure that we answer these questions offline.
I think we're okay on time, but I don't know if Jose also joined or not, because if we are waiting for him, also we have some time, because Sally is not here yet. That's why maybe we can continue with some questions. But in case Jose is here, we can continue with the next session.
Thanks, Rosario. I don't see Jose yet. So let us take a few more questions before while we wait for him.
Okay.
Another question is about whether we have venues and dates for the regional summits. And the answer is only for some of these. So, for example, for the European Regional Summit, this will be held in Berlin on the 6th of December. The Arab Regional Summit will be held in Amman on the 13th and 14th of November. And the North America and Caribbean one will be held virtually at around the end of January. So we're still finalizing a date. We do not yet have confirmation of venue or dates for the Pacific Regional Summit and for the Latin America Regional Summit. There's another question which asks whether the focus will only be on international development or if it is going to be a global event that will involve the national level implementation in a broader concept of inclusive development. I would say, and if I'm understanding the question correctly, that would be both. As I mentioned, one of the main objectives of the co-hosts for this cycle is to promote national ownership and also to look and address gaps at the national and regional level. Of course, the GDS in Berlin will mainly focus on global efforts in terms of panels and discussions. There's another question about getting involved in panel discussions, and I believe I've addressed that already. So I will move forward. Then there's another question on the GDS declaration, who is preparing it, and whether the civil society forum will have a role in contributing to it. The GDS declaration is being drafted by a working group of the co-hosts, so representatives from the International Disability Alliance, Germany, and the government of Germany and the government of Jordan. We are currently in the discussions and in the final steps of a first draft. The GDS declaration being and wanting to be a very strong political document is, of course, a process of negotiation and will be signed, hopefully, by governments. And hence, at the moment, that's the level where the discussions are being held. Of course, the declaration wants to be informed by different documents. Last week, during the African Regional Summit, we started to work on an outcome document with a very strong call to action, which will be adopted by the participants to the conference and which will be sent to the co-hosts so that they can take it into consideration in the drafting process of the declaration. We hope that the same is valid for the Civil Society Forum through the outcome document of the Civil Society Forum and also through all of the different regional summits that are being held. Rosario, I'll maybe take a couple of more. Jose is trying to connect. So if I may ask Alexandra while I keep answering questions, if she can ensure that Jose is indeed able to connect so that we can move forward.
I will,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, or maybe Greta, maybe if there's someone who maybe after listening all the question, maybe someone want to raise hand and make some question. Also, it would be great to hear someone to do 1 or 2 questions in case someone is interested to do that. But anyway.
Yes, thanks, Rosario. I see a question, hand raised from Antonio Pedro Varela Carvalho, and I think we need Alexandra to give him the floor.
Okay.
Sure, I'm giving the
I mean,
launch to
he will
talk
be
to Pedro.
speaking in Portuguese because I mean he's yeah.
I have given the permission to Antonio Pedro to talk. He needs to unmute himself.
Okay, could you please unmute yourself, Antonio? Now you have permission to talk. unmute yourself and go ahead with your question.
Muito boa tarde.
Good
Eu
afternoon.
estava à espera da tradução em português do Rosário. Uma
I was
dificuldade
waiting
com isso.
for the Portuguese translation.
Estou com uma dificuldade em seguir.
I'm having trouble following.
Okay, obrigada. Okay, there's no Portuguese interpretation. I think Alexander, could you please see that, because he's waiting for the Portuguese interpretation. He cannot follow up the webinar.
There is a Portuguese interpretation, and it's already set up and tested. He needs to choose the English, the Portuguese channel.
Okay. Okay. Antônio, você tem que mudar da fala para português, porque na interpretação você tem que pesquisar português e você mudar em sua língua.
Tá bom, eu vou pesquisar aqui e tentar conseguir. Muito
I
obrigado.
will try to do it. Thank you very much.
Now we have José with us. We are going to proceed with our next session about commitments. Thank you so much for all your questions. Now we are going to learn about the importance of having commitments in the Global Disability Summit process. Please welcome José Viera, Interim Executive Director of International Disability Alliance. José has over 20 years of experience in disability advocacy. Previously served as Chief Executive Officer of the World Blind Union. He now leads IDA's strategic and operational reforms. And José, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining the meeting.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. And
Yes, we can.
apologies if the connection is not that stable and the background is not the most efficient one. I'm just connecting through a remote connection. First of all, I really want to thank the opportunity of speaking to all of you today. On behalf of the International Disability Alliance and the Global Disability Summit Secretariat, this is indeed a great pleasure for me to be part of this webinar, and I would like just to share a few reflections around the global disability commitment. And the first thing to be said around this is that clearly the Global Disability Summit has, among many, two key objectives. The first one being the opportunity of creating the space for a unique gathering of different stakeholders that we can all come together and discuss the present and the future of the disability inclusive development, and in particular the implementation of Article 32 of the Convention on the Right of Persons with Disabilities, along with Article 11. But the second key objective for the Global Disability Summit is going above and beyond an international gathering of key stakeholders. And that can be instrumentalized by the global disability commitments. Basically, what we aim for through the global disability commitments is to advance the implementation of the convention and all its articles through further investment in disability inclusion. Clearly, we know that the CRPD is our core instrument, and there are enough state obligations collected through the CRPD to ensure that persons with disabilities, we are included in society. But still, there is a big gap when it comes, especially in further investment through the international cooperation to achieve the CRPD and human rights standards. So basically, the Global Disability Summit has been conceived by first the government of the United Kingdom, Kenya, and the International Disability Alliance for the first summit, the second one by Norway and Ghana, and this third one by Germany and Jordan, with the clear objective of creating a system in which stakeholders mainly governments, UN agencies, civil society more broadly, can submit different commitments. But clearly, if we look at back to the first two summits, we can easily infer that the first one was clearly the opportunity to create the momentum to start discussing how to make international development or international cooperation more disability inclusive. And we clearly achieved that goal because we have seen from 2018 GDS concrete initiative, concrete projects, further investment, more governments championing disability inclusion. And if we look at the second Global Disability Summit, it was, again, a unique milestone because even in the middle of COVID pandemic, we managed to get together around one common goal, which was the global disability or the global inclusion, the disability inclusion agenda. But now, ahead of the third Global Disability Summit, there has been a significant investment by the three co-hosts, Jordan, Germany, and IDA, in understanding exactly what it means to have a system of commitments. What do we really want to achieve? What is the game changer that we are trying to put in place through the Global Disability Commitment System? And basically, as a result of that discussion, we are planning and hopefully to have in 2025 for Berlin commitments that can be measurable. Clearly, if we don't have defined measurements to track progress, it's hard to know if we are doing a good or a bad job. Number two, commitments that are impactful. And by that, I mean commitments that really can change the life of persons with disabilities through and in collaboration with organizations of persons with disabilities. The best way to maybe illustrate this point is that the slogan of nothing about us without us can be perfectly complemented by nothing about us without us, by us and for us, right? So clearly, what we want through the commitments for GDS 2025 is to see commitments that include persons with disabilities through their representative organization and make significant impact in the life of persons with disabilities. We also know that it is great to see political commitments, but if those political commitments are not supported by financial compromises, the impact becomes relatively low. So we really want to have financial compromises coming out from the commitments. And the last but not least is maybe how we are going to do all these commitments. And we are really keen on promoting partnership for commitments. We understand that based on solidarity, based on equal opportunities and equal participation, partnership is the instrument to materialize those commitments that I was talking about just now. So clearly, we want commitments that are in partnership between governments, organizations of persons with disabilities, civil society, the UN agencies, etc., etc. We understand that through the commitments, we are going to go above and beyond just a gathering, an international gathering, but really create this concept of a cycle. We envisage GDS to be the cycle in a 3-year cycle, where we first year prepare for the summit, the second year is the summit itself, and the third year is focused on implementing the commitments collected at each of the summits. And in that context, we understand the importance, the unique role that organizations of persons with disabilities can play in many fronts. The first one being the mobilization for commitment. We should be the one carrying the flag of saying, this is what we want. These are the areas that we expect stakeholders can commit on. Number two is to participate in the international gathering, that is the summit itself and the civil society forum and all the pre-regional summits that are taking place. The first one was in Africa last week. The next one would be in the Arab region, and we are going to have a fantastic pre-summit in Europe at the beginning of December. and in other regions of the world, but basically to promote the participation of organizations of persons with disabilities in the summit. And the third and last, I would say, component is to make sure that those commitments that hopefully we will collect for Berlin next year can be monitored by OPDs, and even more interestingly, implemented in collaboration between OPDs and other stakeholders. In summary, we understand that the summit itself is an opportunity to come together and to discuss what else can be done, but equally important is to have good commitments if we really want to advance the implementation of the CRPD at all levels, regional, national, and globally. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jose, for talking about what are commitments and why they are important. And now we are going to hear from our OPDs because we want to know the OPD perspective on commitments, which are key to translating advocacy into action and ensuring that disability inclusion is prioritized globally. I am pleased to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Marion Steff from the European Disability Forum. Marion is also a really good friend since I met him in 2017. Marion really is very important for here. She also has worked a lot in the European Disability Forum. We would like to hear more from you, Marion. Please, the floor is yours to talk about the OPD perspective of commitments.
Hi, Rosario. Thank you for the introduction. That's I can't believe it's been what, almost 10 years that we know each other and we are friends. So it's really lovely to be here. Thank you to the Global Disability Secretariat for having me today. I have shared a PowerPoint on the screen, and I was wondering if Greta or other colleagues could confirm that you can see it.
We can, Marion. Thank you so much.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. So I'm Marion. I'm the International Cooperation Manager at the European Disability Forum. I was invited today to talk about our work around the summits and also around the commitments. So before moving forward, I just wanted to introduce the European Disability Forum. We are an organization of persons with disabilities based in Brussels. So we are a regional OPD. We have about 112 members across Europe, and they are mostly OPDs. So we work across a lot of different topics, from health, transportation, accessibility, etc. But we also focus, of course, on human rights, on international cooperation, on climate, humanitarian action, and disaster risk reduction. So we've been mandated by the Global Disability Summit Secretariat to organize the Regional Disability Summit, the European version, in Europe and Central Asia. So we've done it in 2022. It was the first edition, which we had online, and was quite successful with about 1,000 people registering online. And this time again, we are going to organize the second edition, which we are doing with the German government and the German Disability Council. As mentioned by Greta, it will be the 6th of December in Berlin. There's about 500 participants expected, but we'll also be able to join it online. The aim of the regional summit on international cooperation and humanitarian action is pretty much twofold. What we have in Europe and Central Asia, we have a number of large donors, like Germany, like the European Union, etc., like the UK. But we have also the disability movement, let's say more in Central Asia, who is neglected and who need some support, etc. So we'll be focusing on these two aspects at the summit. and focusing, of course, on international cooperation, on humanitarian action. We will touch base on climate, on Ukraine, refugees, etc. The regional summit is organized or will be achieved, if you want. Its success is also based through our collaboration with other OPDs, with civil society organizations, the different member states and other stakeholders like foundation, like companies, etc. And of course, our guiding framework is the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So as mentioned before, what is important to realize is that the Global Disability Summit, just like the Regional Summit, is not just an event, that is happening in December or April, etc. It's really a process to catalyze the implementation, but also the monitoring of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So stakeholders have been invited to make commitments to advance inclusion. And I guess often when I've been asked, what do you mean by commitments? I like to say that commitments are like promises or pledges. So Jose, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I like to say when I speak to other people. Promises to advance on the rights of people with disabilities. We have at EDF, I would say, about 3 areas of work. The first one focuses on regional advocacy, where we advocate the European Union to make commitments. The second area of work is related to capacity building. We support our members to try to have their government make commitments. And then finally, the third area of work is related to awareness raising and communication, where we promote GDS, where we promote the regional summit, and we highlight the importance of commitments. So now if I go back to the regional advocacy, this is a very short analysis, if you want, just for this webinar. But in 2018, for the first Global Disability Summit, we noted at the time that the EU made no commitments. It was a bit of a new process, and maybe they were not too sure how to get involved. While at the second Global Disability Summit in 2022, we saw the EU really starting to be really involved with the process around the GDS. And the EU actually made 16 commitments, which was great for us to see. And they focused around inclusive education, conflict and crisis, health, livelihood and social protection, CRPD alignment, and tracking expenditure. So I didn't write down all the 16 commitments, but I extracted 2 to give you an example. One of the commitment was for the Commission, so the European Commission, to donate, to give 5 million euro to the UN Partnership on the Rights of Persons with Disability, what we call the UN PRPD. This was done, and that was great to see that support from the EU to the UN PRPD. And another commitment was related to the use of the OECD DAC marker, the Development Assistance Committee Disability Marker. It's a marker to see how projects by different member states include people with disabilities. A very simple marker from 012, sorry. And what we saw is that the EU started to really have more projects that are disability inclusive. So in 2018, 2% of that project in global action were inclusive of people with disabilities, while in 2021 is 26%. So that's a really good progress to see. Obviously, we could have more, but what we like to see is that steadily progress on inclusion. What we're going to do at EDF in the fall is to analyze the EU commitments, to 16 commitments, and to see how they've been implemented, if they've been successful, if there's any progress, etc. And what we will do, we will also send some suggestion of commitment to the EU. And to give you an example, one of them is that we are asking for the EU to have a EU disability action plan in global action. The EU, for instance, has a disability action plan for, an action plan for youth. It's called the Youth Action Plan in Global Action. They have another one on gender, the Gender Action Plan, again in Global Action, but it's not the case when it comes to disability. So that's something we will be advocating for. If I go back to our second area of work, which related to capacity building, I can explain that, for instance, we had some consultation workshop that we had in the spring to identify the different themes that will be used, if you want, at the regional summit. We took this workshop, the opportunity of the workshop to explain the commitment process, to raise awareness about commitments, etc. And we also publish a toolkit, and I can put the link in the chat box a little bit later. The toolkit, what I have is that we have, I've put in this on the slide 4 steps that I kind of summarize, if you want, for you for this presentation. But if you want to engage in the commitments, the first step is really to try to identify which ministry in your country are involved, or which ministry should be involved. You can write to them or request a meeting. We put a template later in the EDF toolkit, and you can present your priorities. You can make some recommendation of commitments of what you want to see from your government. We also suggest to engage with other groups, so interact with the women groups, youth group, etc., because it might be interesting to advocate together. And that's what José was talking about, those partnerships that could be very important to have to strengthen our voice. And the last point I put here is also, a possibility to contact your members of your national parliament. This is what we're doing right now at EDF. You may have seen that we have new member of the European Parliament. We call them MEPs that have been elected. And this week we send them toolkit for the different groups working on different topics. And the group that is, for instance, working on development, we raise some point around the Global Disability Summit, for instance. So again, I can put the link in the chat box a little bit later. The last point I wanted to touch base is the work we're doing around awareness raising. So we've got our website that is up to date. Don't hesitate to go on our website to see the different activities that we have. We have also a Global Action newsletter where you can register and receive the latest news. We had a survey. Now it was closed. It was in different language, including easy to read. And of course, we like to try to take part in events and webinars to promote the different processes around the Global Disability Summit and to raise awareness around commitments. On the slide here, I added a picture of the first consultation that we had back in the spring. So you have a bunch of lovely faces smiling for the camera, and we were together to talk about the different theme that we can have for the regional summit, but also to talk about commitments and what this is about. So that's it from my side. Thank you. If you have any question, of course, I'm available. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marion. We will be having questions after. And thank you so much especially for these keyword partnerships, because definitely We cannot work isolated. If we want to do disability inclusion, we need to work in partnerships with other groups. Thank you so much for reminding us.
Thank you.
Okay, thank Marion. Now we are going to hear from Henry Murillo Salazar, a human rights advocate and a Bridge alumni. Henry is a wheelchair user, a survivor of the armed conflict in Colombia, and an advocate for persons with disabilities. He coordinates and leads the OPD called Redes Call in Colombia, which has played a vital role in the reporting of CRPD implementation and raising awareness on different topics, and especially on the challenges that persons with disabilities face in Colombia and in other parts of Latin America. He also was producing a SDG parallel report jointly with other organizations, and he was leading the process. Henry will be talking more about a reflection about how will be the ideal situation in which OPDs can be engaged in monitoring commitments. Henry, the floor is yours.
Gracias, Rosario. Muy buenos días para todos. Un saludo.
Thank you very much, Rosario. Good afternoon to everyone. I am saying hello from Colombia. I'm very happy to be here to participate and to reflect about this movement of persons with disabilities. So, of course, it is very important to have an organization of persons with disabilities, and Global Disability Summit has an objective to improve lives of persons with disabilities, and there have been progresses, for example, to eliminate some barriers of different nature, somehow to make conditions equal of persons with disabilities and persons without disabilities. For example, capacities in education, in terms of accessibility, to improve all of that, among other things. Also, it is expected to promote inclusion in terms of education, access to work market, labor market. From the perspective of diversity, promote respect towards the persons with disabilities. And finally, some promises were generated. Of course, to generate complete promises, and it is here where, as a person with disability and as an organization, we are calling for the participation in public and private life, to follow those promises established by a private sector, by governments, and civil society organization. During the first 978 promises were made during the first Disability Summit, and 1,412 promises were made during the second summit, and that puts us in a position in the world, all of us, persons with disabilities. But here we are inviting to, we want to participate in the construction of local, regional, national frameworks and developments. If we participate as active subjects in these development plans, especially in the Caribbean part and in Latin America, we see how somehow these plans are being implemented without including us. But we can also contribute to build inclusive societies. This is the first step, the first sign, to participate as collective subjects. The second thing is also very important, to revise the budgets destined for persons with disabilities. And of course, to have some inclusive budgets, because without a budget, it's going to be difficult to have plans, programs, and projects that will impact lives of persons with disabilities. Thirdly, which is also very, very important, to participate in public policies with the focus on human rights, to rely on, of course, reliable sources and budgets. In our region, these policies are not on a very high level, especially when the guarantee of human rights is implied. But of course, the budget has to be available for public policies that will impact persons with disabilities. In the fourth place, we have to register following of national, regional plans. This implies that persons with disabilities and also organizations of persons with disabilities, we need to make sure the following of these plans on the regional, local level. And based on that, saying nothing about us without us. To participate in all of the actions initiated by governments and other organizations, how these actions that were initiated by the governments, if they lead us to create more just societies. That's why a global summit becomes a scenario where to have aligned promises which actually require OPDs, and our actually call would be to put this into action and to include the experiences of persons and organizations with disabilities. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Rosario, and I'm available for any questions.
To be more engaged in different commitments, in different action plans of the government's public policy. Definitely, it's very important to have this view of OPDs in Latin America and in other regions as well. Before going for the break, because we need a break for interpreters, for language interpreters, and also for international sign interpreters, we would like to know, I don't know, Alexandra, if there are some questions for Henry or for Marion in the chat box. Maybe
Rosario, Greta here. There's several questions I'm trying to answer them and typing the answer. We'll also do our best to collect them and then send an email to everyone after. Maybe as there's 2 raised hands, should we quickly give the floor to the 2 raised hands?
Okay, please let me know who is raising hand.
So we have Kamran Rafiq and then Luis Almanza Yangues.
Okay, please, Kamra Rafiq, please. I don't know if you have your mic unmute. Alexandra, please, you can check to unmute the mic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, good afternoon. It's Donald O'Shea calling here from Ireland. I'm in under camera and I had some difficulty accessing. So thank you for the opportunity. There's quite a bit about myself online. Donald O'Shea from County Kerry and also Donald O'Shea from County Laois. So to be honest, I'm a long time involved in this. A lot of what I've heard is very, very concerning. I heard reference to financial compromise. That's not where we need to be with the UN Convention, certainly not in Ireland 6 years after it was ratified. And as somebody who's been in the media and took part in our lower house of parliament in the Oireachtas committees, having heard of lives being put in risk, judges only receiving training on mental health in 2020, no legal management in the public legal system until civic society represented it. A lot of this is very, very disturbing. Let me give you some examples. I attended a rare disease meeting in the MTU, which is in the southwest in Tralee, recently in June. 410,000 people impacted by rare diseases, 8,000 diseases in total. A green paper published by the Department of Social Protection, exclusively monetary in perspective. No regard for social justice, no regard for human dignity, no regard for civil rights. My God, guys, we're gone so far behind here. Like we don't need a global conference. We need an EGM urgently. I kid you not. Social inclusion, activation of funding streams, leader, the wheel, just to name a few at European level. It's the culture. Sorry to the interpreter if I'm going too fast. The need for lead entities. So if you are limited and somebody knocks on the door, there is an understanding, there is a resonance, there is a cohesion, there's an alignment, etc., etc. I have an acute appreciation that people will be confined to bed, will be confined to house. It's unique to personal circumstances. I've gone through all the layers. I gave 10 years waiting for a high-end biological medication, which I eventually received. Subsequently, part contributory to a family law, legal are not up to speed, court are not up to speed. I could go on, but there was reference to the gender aspect, and that's one that needs to be addressed very, very quickly. There was reference to prioritization, even a time in Europe and in Ireland during unprecedented expenditure. I saw footpaths, I saw walkways, I saw tertiary needs being prioritized long before the primary areas around mental health, around social inclusion, around, legal practices, protecting civil rights. So somebody mentioned what are potential prioritizations for the future.
I'm so sorry. We must also give the opportunity to other speakers. If you could wrap up.
Can I just make 3 final points, please, briefly? So you asked for the conference, the global summit, what are potential 3 prioritizations? May I say, number 1, civil rights, human rights. It's got to be a line in the sand. Secondly, in terms of funding, what I've just outlined, the activation of funding stream, and then subsequently the integration on all its means, housing, transport, etc., etc. Because if we're not expediting those now all these years past the convention, like we're not making progress, And I speak with somebody now that has moved the commission on civil rights.
I'm so sorry, but we will need to move forward to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm very sorry because we want to hear all your comments, but sometimes, I mean, we're pressing also for time because we have service providers and we need to fulfill with the time
Sure.
that we have. I'm very sorry for that.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for raising your comments. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think Greta, if there's another raised hand that you mentioned, or we can go for the break.
We have Luis Almanza Yangues. If Alexandra can give him the floor.
Okay, Luis, just let you know if it's possible for you to give your question maybe in 15 or 20 seconds at the most, because we are running out of time and we need to do the break also for the interpreters. Sorry for that.
I don't see Luis anymore.
Okay, maybe he's not.
Oh, now
Okay.
it's back in the chat. Luis, the floor is yours.
Yes, Luis, the floor is yours, and please try to attach to the question and just 20 seconds maximum. Sorry for that. Is the mic on mute, Alexandra or Greta?
Yes, mic is in mute.
But maybe he's having problems with his connectivity. Okay, maybe maybe we come back to him after the break or after the next speaker. Okay. Okay, now we can hear. Okay. Luis, are you there? No. Luis, are you there? No, I think he's speaking, but okay, Luis, are you are on mute? I think. Can you go ahead? I can hear you. Luis, ¿estás allí para escucharte?
Luis is muted now, sorry.
Okay. I think we can go now for a break. We're going to have like a 10 minutes break for also interpreters and language interpreters. And also you want to maybe go and have a coffee, something like that, you can go and go back to our webinar. Thank you so much. We will be back here in 10 minutes at 9:32. Okay. See you. We are going back to the webinar, I think, after our break. I hope everybody is here. Okay, I know that we had different questions at the beginning of this informative session about the Civil Society Forum. I think this is the session in which we will be talking more about this issue, about also civil society reference group. And I would like to welcome back to everyone. I welcome back to our next speaker. She will be providing us information about what is critical for the Global Disability Summit to have this civil society forum. I'd like to introduce Maria Victoria Trümper, advisor at Interest Representation Self-Determined Living in Germany. She advocates for the rights of persons with disabilities in Germany. She has extensive experience working with organizations of persons with disabilities and human rights issues. Maria Victoria, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. I know we have German interpreters today, but I was speaking in English, if that's okay. So I will give you a short overview of what we are doing in the Civil Society Reference Group and what the Civil Society Forum is. First of all, I give you a visual impression of myself. I have like longer, wavy, blonde reddish hair. I'm wearing a blazer and I'm wearing some cute earrings. So now that you know myself visually, I can start to tell you something about the Civil Society Reference Group. So yeah, thank you. I was already introduced. It's important for me to say that actually my colleague Dina Radke should be here today also, but she's still on holiday, which I can understand. So yeah, I just wanted to say that Dina Radke is a very important figure in the disability rights movement here in Germany. She was there from the start in the 1980s, and she's also very important for the rights of women and girls with disabilities. So, and she also has a lot of contacts around the world with OPDs, and my organization and Dina's organization, we are members of the Disabled Peoples International. Yes. Okay, so yes, the organization I'm working for and Dina working for, of course, is an OPD, and we are a human rights organization. That is very important for us to tell. So we are part of the Civil Society Reference Group. What is the Civil Society Reference Group doing? We are preparing the Civil Society Forum, which is taking place on April the 1st in Berlin. Here in Berlin, I'm sitting in Berlin too. So yeah, the Civil Society Forum should amplify the voices and the participation of persons with disabilities and their OPDs. So that is very important to know. It's about persons with disabilities directly and their OPDs and yeah, their families. And so that is very important to know. In the last Civil Society Forum in 2022, which was online, there were over 1,100 participants taking place in it. And I hope that in Berlin, we will have the same number. So please, when you're joining us for the GDS, whether online or hopefully in presence here in Berlin, then please join also the Civil Society Forum. The Civil Society Forum highlights current issues relevant to the global disability movement and the realization and implementation of the CRPD. For the Civil Society Forum, there will be a declaration prepared to remind everybody ahead of the GDS to make the commitments as serious, as ambitious, and above all, I think, lasting and really meaningful as possible. We do not need like some kind of declaration, as we have already heard before, but we need to take it into action. Nothing else will help persons with disabilities more or support them more than something that is not only we're talking about, but that comes into really action. So what are we doing in the Civil Society Reference Group? The Civil Society Reference Group is a, yeah, I would say like a deeply democratic group. And as you know, democracy can be also complicated, and democracy is about like hearing everybody in the group. So that is something I really appreciate about the group. So we constantly meet up in the group. So that means once per month since I think spring 2023. We keep each other updated on the process of the organization of the pre-summits and the GDS 2025. Yeah, we try to make remarks, and we make sure that OPDs take the leadership and interest in the summit. So we are the voices of the OPDs globally. And also we connect with local OPDs and networks in different countries and make sure that everything at the GDS, and I mean it, is really in line with the CRPD and really reflects the realities, the life realities of persons with disabilities in different countries. And I mean like in the global north as well in the global south. So we in Germany, we had the state party review by the UN Committee of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities last year. And I can assure you the German government really embarrassed themselves in it. So we in Germany, persons with disabilities have like also a lot of very urgent issues that we have to push forward to get something done for persons with disabilities. Yeah, like I said, like everything we decide and discuss and have questions about, that's the good thing about the Civil Society Reference Group. We can give directly to the International Disability Alliance, to our colleagues at IDA, and we can ask them about something if something is not sure, and we are in constant contact with the secretary, and and also IDA is in a very deep exchange with the co-host for the GDS, so that is our direct connection, I would say, to the co-hosts. Yes. Who are the members of the Civil Society Reference Group? Of course, it's the International Disability Alliance. As you know, it's the European Disability Forum. Marion Steff already spoke today. It's the IDDC, which Mary Keogh represents. Then the Arab Organizations of Persons with Disabilities, Abdel Qader Suleiman is there, the representative. Then the Jordanian Network of Persons with Disabilities, which is Navav Kabada. And for the German OPDs, it's Dina Radke and me. And we are speaking, like we are working at our organization, but we are speaking on behalf of the German Disability Council. And we also have representatives for the NGOs, which is Friederike Römer from Handicap International or Humanity and Inclusion, and also, like I was told today, Michael Herbst from CVM Germany. What are our current plans in the Civil Society Reference Group? So until the end of November 2024, we are defining the program for the Civil Society Reference Group, for the Civil Society Forum, I'm sorry. That means like defining the program means finding the moderators, the speakers, the topics we want to talk about within the panels. And it's very important for me to say that our focus is always on intersectional aspects. We talked about children's rights today, we talked about women's rights and so on. And that's something we have always constantly on our minds, otherwise we wouldn't do it. And also, we focus on the wishes and needs of directly persons with disabilities and OPDs as well. Of course, the accessibility of the event, of course, and the reasonable accommodations so everybody can participate in it. So, and after that is done, after we define the program, we are creating and finalizing the so-called Civil Society Declaration. So to wrap it up, I just want to mention some important notes and some important dates. So we have as IDA prepared already a survey which should express your views on what the Civil Society Forum should be focusing on. And I hope some of our colleagues will put the link in the chat box so that you can fill out the survey. And like I said, the Civil Society Forum will take place on the 1st of April here in Berlin. And that's kind of it. I just want to say, apart from the Civil Society Forum, as I mentioned, I'm working in a local OPD here in Germany. And if you have questions or you want to contact a German OPD, I will put down my contact information so you can write me an email and then we can get in touch. So that would be really nice because we are also really looking forward for networking and contacting each other with other OPDs all around the world. So don't be shy, even if you're not speaking English. I speak several languages, so we can make it work. So if you want to get in touch with us, just write me an email. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria Victoria, and thank you so much also for your willingness to reply in different languages. It's really great because many people prefer to write in their own language. Okay, thank you so much. I know that you have a lot of questions. Maybe it would be great if you can put all your questions here in the chat, and we can also send an email answering your questions. This is what we are going to do, because we have learned a lot about Civil Society Forum, but I am sure that there are a lot of questions there that you want to raise. Now, we are going to move to our last part of this, like a webinar, informative webinar. In this case, I mean, instead of you are asking questions, we would like to ask two important questions for us. After everything that you have heard about commitments, about Civil Society Forum, about components of GDS, we would like to know two things. You can also write in the chat, or if it's okay for you, also you can write directly to us, to the email that Greta has posted in the chat to the summit. But there are two questions that I would like to ask now. The first question is about how do you think the Civil Society Forum should influence the Global Disability Summit? It means, how do you think the Civil Society Forum should influence the Global Disability Summit? I mean, the whole process. You can maybe write the really in the chat, or maybe we can also hear two people responding that, if you want to do that. And also, Greta is posting the link to the Civil Society Forum. We have a Civil Society Forum link. It is a survey, and you can fill out this questionnaire, this survey, about the topics, about preferences for Civil Society Forum. Okay, let's go. Sorry, Greta. Go ahead.
No. Thank you so much, Rosario. I'm monitoring the chat box in case there are questions that are related, answers that are related to your question. And I've also added the link to the survey in the chat box. I will now write it in the other languages for everyone. I see a hand raised from Otto Mazariegos in case he wants to answer the question that you just posed. Alexandra, if we can give the floor to Otto.
Okay, Alexandra, can we unmute the mic of Otto?
Yes. Otto, you have to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, Otto, te escuchamos.
Buenos días, buenas tardes. ¿Me escuchan?
Sí, te escuchamos bien.
Desde Guatemala, sí. ¿Cómo puede incidir la sociedad civil en la cumbre mundial? Creo que dando aportes que realmente sean valorados desde la perspectiva.
I think that we need to give to support everything regarding the people with disabilities. We were talking about the budgets and revising the budgets from the point of states, but not only the budgets that go for the institutions that treat the disability topics, the secretaries and the ministries, but also these budgets needed to be transversal and cover the public institutions, so that the municipality have direct access to them as well. And we also need the direct cooperations so that the beneficiaries can directly benefit from the organizations for the disability, so that these support of international community can come to those who need it, and they come indirectly, and many times they're conditional. Thank you.
about the budget is very important to influence in the budget of to review the budget of the different government identities in order to know if the budgets are inclusive for persons with disabilities. And also it's very important to review that the donations of the international cooperation can go directly to organizations of persons with disabilities, because he mentioned that most of the times, especially in Latin America, I don't know in other regions, the donations go directly to organizations for persons with disabilities and not for organizations of persons with disabilities. Thank you so much for this contribution, Otto. And we also is a response for our first question. Okay, now we are going to our second question. And just to let you know that you can also send an email with the response. If you don't want to do it here, or maybe you don't have time to do it here, you can do it by email. And the second question is, what is a key message the civil society should send to the Global Disability Summit? What is the key message civil society should send to the Global Disability Summit? This is our second question. Sorry, Greta, yes?
No, Rosario, Greta here. We have a remark in the Q&A box, which I think also addresses the second question. The remark is from Liz Han, and it reads, I feel the output of the Civil Society Forum should be part of the outcome of the overall conference, maybe already mentioning gaps that we think the conference will not mention. And indeed, the plan is to have an outcome document of the Civil Society Forum to be read and to be presented at the main summit. And we're also actively advocating so that the forum is given a space during the official program.
Thank you so much, Greta, for reading these answers. And I don't know if there are any other answer, or maybe just to invite you, all of you who want to provide your answers, to the email that Greta has posted in the Q&A box in the chat, and also to invite all of you to fill out the survey about the Civil Society Forum. Okay, I think we have been doing a very productive webinar. We have a lot of information now. This is the first informative webinar, as I mentioned. We will be having a lot of webinars after this. Please keep posted about that. We will be publishing this in the newsletter. Maybe you can subscribe to the newsletter. Also, Greta posted the address to subscribe to the newsletter. But also, we will be sending different emails, or also WhatsApp in the WhatsApp groups for British alumni and other groups that we have, because we will be exploring more about the upcoming regional summits that Greta mentioned, and also other webinars that we will be having regarding youth, regarding indigenous persons with disabilities. It's very good to have all of you now. We decided to have this first informative webinar with different languages in order that the information can be accessible for everyone in different regions. Also, to recall you that if you have further questions, you can also send an email whenever you want with these questions. Greta, I don't know if you want to add anything else before finishing our webinar today.
Thanks so much, Rosario, for giving me the opportunity to just say a couple of words. I really want to thank everyone for participating. There's still about 50 questions in the chat box. I've answered about another 50, so I really want to thank you, as almost all of you asked us a question or multiple questions, and that's really great. We will extract all of the questions and we will be sending replies to your questions. There's also many of you that have shared what their priorities should be for the Civil Society Forum, and also expressed interest in having the needs and views of different groups included in the GDS. I do want to ensure you that even though we may not have had time to go through all of the questions, we are indeed noting everything down, and we truly appreciate the level of participation to this webinar. We will be posting more information on the upcoming and more webinars soon. I think considering the outcome of this informative session, we will also think about having a second informative session, maybe towards the end of the autumn and before the beginning of 2025. So once again, thanks to all of you for participating. Thanks for Rosario for being such an excellent moderator, and thank you to all of the panelists. Rosario, over to you.
Thank you so much, Greta. I would like to say that there were more than 200 people registered. I remember that we started our webinar with 176 participants. Now I am seeing 136 participants, which is really great. And thank you so much. And as Greta mentioned, we will be trying to arrange another informative webinar. And in the next upcoming webinars, we will be having different languages, but more relative to, for instance, if we have the webinar about Latin America, we'll be having Spanish and English, but maybe we will be doing another second informative webinar with like 4 or 5 languages as we are doing right now. Thank you so much to all our service providers, so international sign interpreters, international language interpreters, for the captioner, and thank you so much for to Alexandra for the technical support, to our logistics team, thanks to Greta, and to all the communication team of GDS, Shagni, Alessandra as well. Thank you so much to all of you. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much. Have a great day.